And I'll give you an example.
Okay, good.
I had a recent client. She came to me because um, she's a divorced mom of two, and solo parent, single parent, and she was feeling like, I just feel like I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I'm worried that one day I'm going to look up and we're not going to have enough for rent. We're not going to have enough for our basic necessities. And I was like, okay, cool. Let's sit down and take a look. And so we literally, like, my very first session that I do with clients is, I call it a discovery session, and it's a 2 hour like deep dive. Like, we get into the nitty gritty of your debt, of your income, of all of your expenses, and we kind of map out a plan.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. I have an amazing guest for you today. I was overwhelmed and excited when she said that she was agreeing to speak with you guys and share her story. Her name is Rebecca, and she has a lot to talk about. We actually have been friends for a minute now, and we met through a networking group in real estate, which is, if you know me at all, that's my jam. And I want to share her story with you guys today. So let's start with you, Rebecca. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? What are you doing right now? And then we'll get into more.
Yeah, awesome. So, well, first off, thanks for having me on your podcast. I'm super excited. I love doing podcast episodes. So, basically, my story starts. My husband, who is a sheriff's deputy here in California, him and I realized about 3 years ago that we were relying on his access to overtime way too much, and made a series of financial decisions that just did not line up with how we really wanted to live our lives. Kind of like a little backstory is, I've spent the past 15 years in the public school sector, within the child nutrition field. And so I have worked up from entry level as a budget technician all the way up to director of the program. And so you would think that somebody who is used to managing, $1 million budgets, that I would have, a better understanding of, our personal finance. And that really wasn't the case. Yeah, it's interesting when my degree is in financial management, but ironically, you don't have to take a personal finance course when you get your financial management degree. It's an elective, so you can choose to, but you don't have to. Yeah, exactly. And so one of those things that I realized along the way is that personal finances is a whole different ballgame.
Hmm.
It is mostly behavioral and emotional based. Whereas, business finances it's numbers based. So, through our journey, my husband and I think we had racked up about $120,000 in consumer debt between the two of us. So it was a pretty hefty hill to climb.
Yeah.
And so we just kind of set out on this journey to basically start making smart decisions with our money and paying off debt, and figuring out, what's that next step, increasing our savings, saving up for retirement. And then, what are those other investment opportunities that are out there that we can, get the most bang for our buck, essentially.
Did you have like a direction where you went? Did you read a book? Like, how did you decide to make this decision?
That's a great. So it actually kind of, there was one situation that happened that kind of catapulted the whole thing. So I had mentioned that we had made, a series of like bad financial decisions, and the straw that kind of broke the camel's back was my husband and I had we had decided that we wanted to get season tickets to the San Jose Earthquakes. They were front row, box seats, like it was a whole thing. And it ended up being a 3-year contract,
Mm.
which we realized that about like a weekend after signing the contract. And at that point, we realized, like, we can't keep doing this. And so, once we kind of had that, like, come to Jesus moment, right? You kind of look at yourself in the mirror, like, what the heck have you done? Like, now we have to make a choice. So we didn't know where to start. And so we started on the Dave Ramsey track, which I know, especially nowadays, Dave Ramsey is kind of, can leave, a bad taste in some people's mouths. But the truth is that his baby steps was like that foundation that we needed. It was like, this is our jumping point. Like, we have a clear set of rules that we're going to follow. Now, we realized about probably about 3 months in that we didn't want to follow all the rules.
Pick and choose, right?
So we were what they call Dave-ish, I guess. But I think I recognize that with my husband being in law enforcement and just the high stressors of the job, we didn't want to really restrict ourselves when it comes to our money, but we also knew that we had to start making better decisions. And so we basically just kind of used the baby steps as like that jumping start. And then I just started reading a bunch of personal finance books. I think the next one that both my husband and I read together, technically we listened to it, but was Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And that's when we really started to think about real estate.
That opens the
And
door for so many people.
it really does. And but through this journey, reading books from all these different, I guess financial gurus that have, differing opinions on, what it means to, manage your money. I realized that there were other families out there that probably experienced some of the same challenges that my husband and I experienced. And so that's when I started my financial coaching business. So I think we were about 6 months into our own journey when I started my business. So I was still pretty new. I was still kind of learning really what it meant to manage personal finances and like the intricacies of, the behavior aspect and the mindset aspect and, how our emotions are really kind of dictate how we spend our money. And so I just kind of started to build my financial coaching business along the way, just, reading books here and there and gaining experience through actually working with clients one on one. To date, while I predominantly work with first responders, I do have clients that are non first responder. But now I'm starting to branch into contracting with departments. So, with like law enforcement departments who have officer wellness programs. So, I'm kind of doing a hodgepodge of things where I'm working with departments, but I'm also have, my organic clientele that comes to me through like whether it's referrals or like social media and things like that. So, but basically helping people get a handle on their personal finances.
Now, I know you started and then you went into your coaching, but we're skipping over a huge part of your story. You have had major success with the plan that you followed. Tell everybody just exactly how you were able to pay off and how much you did pay off of your personal debt.
Right. Yes. So, technically, my husband and I still have about $4,300 left of our $120,000 debt, but that's going to be paid off in the next couple of weeks once we get our tax return this year. So,
Yay, congratulations.
yay. So we will be completely debt free. It will have taken us less than 3 years to do so. Now that I know to some people is going to be like, what the ever loving hell did you guys do? But it really was, it was a grind. Fortunately, the first year and a half of our journey, both my husband and I had W-2 jobs. We worked full time and we both had um pretty pretty good salaries, even based on California standards. Like we lived very comfortably. So we had already a good chunk that we could start throwing towards our debt. And the more debt we paid off, the easier it became because it just freed up more money. We did use the debt snowball method,
Oh,
which
okay.
is what Dave Ramsey suggested, which is where, you list out all of your debts in order from smallest to largest, and then you paid minimums on everything, and then you start attacking that smallest debt. When we started that, I think we had a total of 18 different debt accounts. Like it was insane. I think within the first month, we wiped out almost half of them because they were just such small amounts
Ah,
that we were just able to eliminate half of them, which is why I think the debt snowball is such a popular method to use for debt payoff, is because you see those quick wins. So basically we just hustled. My husband worked a buttload of overtime. Now, some of that was mandatory because, if anybody's familiar with how law enforcement is right now, short staffed across the board nationwide. So there's a lot of mandatory overtime. But he had a work rotation where he had 5 days on, 5 days off, 2 days on, 2 days off. And so basically he was essentially working 6 days a week, basically, for a couple years. And he took time off, here and there, for vacations. And when it just got to a point where he was starting to feel, a little burnt out, But basically, like 2 years in, or like a year and a half in, we realized that we had paid off so much of our debt. I think we only had about 10 grand left. That at that point, I was just really unhappy at my W-2 job. I
That's
was,
what I want to
it,
talk about next. Good, good. I'm like, what
yes.
happened with the W-2 and where did you go? Because we didn't meet when you were in a W-2. You're already out of that. So I want to hear about that.
Yes. So I was just miserable. My husband was on graveyards at the time. We have two little ones. I had my second daughter in August of 2021,
Mm.
and or not October of 2021. And it just was so exhausting. And I mean, I was the director of the program, so I was going to work every day feeling like I was having to kind of babysit people almost. And then coming home and then solo parenting the rest of the night while trying to build this financial coaching business. And at the time, I had also got into this real estate mentorship. And so I was like juggling too many balls at that time. And so we finally got to the point financially we were comfortable. We had enough money that set aside that we had our mortgage would be paid for an entire year. So we knew that we would be safe, that we had that money set aside specifically to pay our mortgage. So then my husband's paycheck would just pay for everything else while I sat here, tried to build this financial coaching business and tried to learn as much as I could about real estate and really just kind of start building this entrepreneur type lifestyle for us.
Hmm. I like that. Now, going into totally something different. Now, was that scary for you? And what really was like, you know what? I think I can do this. Because I know everybody has to have that moment when you launch into something completely new. Myself, I've been to many seminars, I've hosted them. It's a weird world, but you kind of launch into it. So tell us about that transition.
So to be honest with you, I don't know if I would have gotten there as quickly had we not gone into this real estate mentorship. So we this mentorship, while like the real estate aspect of it, I'm still learning, and it's been kind of a slow process there. The biggest thing that they talked about was mindset. And it was really just about recognizing that you have it in yourself to do whatever it is you put your mind to. So get out there and do what you feel passionate about. At that, like once that kind of clicked for me,
Hmm.
and then I made the connection that like I'm miserable at my job. I really want to be doing financial coaching and learning more about real estate investing. So like, what do I need to do? Like at that point, I was like, no, like choice is clear. Like, especially, because we were financially set. Now, it probably would have been a different story had we not had our finances on track at that point. But it was a very easy decision. And even for my husband, knowing that he was going to be the sole income provider in our household for a while, he was even like, yes, like quit your job yesterday, like let's do this. Like because he did the mentorship with me, so he essentially, I guess he kind of fed into the whole like mindset thing too. And it was just, I don't know, it was just an easy decision, and I know that's probably going to be hard for a lot of people to really kind of wrap their head around. But if you have passion about something, if you are just so inspired by whatever it is in your life, whatever that expertise is that you have, and that's not being fulfilled in your current job or your current lifestyle, like it's up to you to make that change.
Hmm. What do you think your driving force was through all of this? I know you said you want to help people with their finances, but that couldn't be the only reason that was sort of driving you this direction or decision.
Yeah, I think recognizing how much my husband was working, my ultimate goal was to get us to the point where he didn't have to work that overtime,
Mm,
where I could make enough money in my businesses, in my two businesses, where he could cut back on the overtime. And he still loves being in law enforcement. So he's in law enforcement, and then together him and I also have, so technically I guess I have three businesses. The one of them is technically his, even though it's my name is on the LLC. So he has his passion project on the side. And so the goal is like for him to just still be able to do law enforcement because he really does enjoy being a police officer, but not work the overtime. And then on his days off, just because of this rotation that he has, where he like literally every other week has 5 days off in a row. Like, not very many people have that type of flexibility in their job. And so now he has all this time that he can utilize towards his passion projects and not have to worry about working overtime. And then, because really, I think having that balance is really what helps people to feel fulfilled in their life. And when it comes to a marriage, even if there's one person who's not fulfilled, your relationship is going to be off balance.
Hmm.
And so it's really important to recognize and try to work towards each person finding that purpose in life that is that driving force that brings happiness to them, outside of the relationship. And two is like we just wanted him home more. We want him to, we've got two little girls. Like we want them to grow up and having family time and family experiences and, being able to go on weekend trips without having to, wonder if, he needs to, we need to plan this out, months and months ahead of time. So it just really came down to the fact that we just wanted to spend more time together. We wanted to essentially, I guess, buy back your time, like, Robert Kiyosaki would say.
Right, right. Where has that led you? Like, what are you spending all this time that you gained back from not being at your W-2 job? And what are you doing with that now?
Ooh, great question. So this has been, I think, the biggest struggle for me because I have spent a majority of my public service career just like working my butt off, hustling, and you know doing extended education outside of work hours. And then once I became a mom, I had my focus split. So I have always been filling my time with things to do. And so that kind of bled into the past. I think it's a little over a year since I've left my W-2 job. And that pattern uh kind of bled over into, even though I technically have all this quote unquote free time, right? I just started filling it with all these things because in my mind is like I need to keep busy in order for, productivity is basically equals success, right? So the more productive you are, the more successful you're going to be. And so all of my time was just dedicated to work, 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 work. And like literally just recently, it dawned on me, especially with the help of my husband, that like this isn't what we had envisioned when I
Hmm.
left my job. Yes, building a business, it takes hard work and it takes that hustle. But the vision that we have for me leaving my life is for me to be able to find that balance so I can show up better as a wife, so I can show up better as a mom, and I can show up better as an entrepreneur. And I wasn't doing that.
Hmm.
And so now I've made it a point where, 3 mornings a week, block out an hour and a half of my time on my calendar and make sure I go do yoga. So those things that you do for yourself, having passions in life is not just necessarily about what you do for your job, but it's like, what are those hobbies that you have that you can cultivate? Because that's all part of who you are as a person. I wasn't doing the only thing that I was focusing on was the work part, and I
Hmm.
wasn't focusing on the other things that I enjoy. And so that's one of the things that's implementing yoga into my weekly schedule has been a game changer because it helps with mindset, number one.
Yeah.
It helps with reducing that stress, those cortisol levels that spike regularly for an entrepreneur trying
When
to
you're
figure things out.
self-employed, right?
But, obviously, and then physically too, it helps, with my physical wellness. And so that has been a game changer. So it's, I'm really starting to focus on and realize that, yes, I'm an entrepreneur and yes, it's up to me to build my business and money doesn't come in if I don't put in the work. But I also have that flexibility of time where I can, take mornings off to go do yoga or like yesterday. I decided that, I want to go and just do a little bit of shopping because my wardrobe has been lacking lately. So it's like I've been trying to upgrade my wardrobe. So it's like taking those little moments to
Yeah.
be able to just step away from the computer, step away from the grind, and just do things for yourself.
What's the I guess your favorite part about what you're doing right now by helping others?
Oh, I think it's definitely when people get that realization. that the stories they've been telling themselves about money and how money influences their life or how money affects their life are actually false. And I'll give you an example.
Okay, good.
I had a recent client. She came to me because um, she's a divorced mom of two, and solo parent, single parent, and she was feeling like, I just feel like I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I'm worried that one day I'm going to look up and we're not going to have enough for rent. We're not going to have enough for our basic necessities. And I was like, okay, cool. Let's sit down and take a look. And so we literally, like, my very first session that I do with clients is I call it a discovery session, and it's a 2 hour like deep dive. Like, we get into the nitty gritty of your debt, of your income, of all of your expenses, and we kind of map out a plan. We take a look at, okay, what does your budget look like? What does your debt look like? And let's establish some savings goals and so on and so forth. And by the end of the 2 hours, one of her goals was that she wanted to take her boys to Florida for vacation this summer. And she wasn't at all sure how she was going to do it because she knew it was going to be expensive. And she actually said that she's like, I looked up flights and then shut my computer and didn't look any further. And by the end of our 2 hour session, she actually realized that she already had the money. Yeah. And she had that realization. And so I made that connection for her. I said, you have been telling yourself for so long that you do not know how to manage money, that you don't have enough money, that you will never have enough money. And you continue to believe that. I said, but the numbers don't lie. Like, you could book that trip today and still have money in your savings for, your emergency fund or, your vehicle maintenance or home maintenance or whatever it is that just to have that cushion. It's like, you'll still have a cushion. And so it was when people come to that realization that things aren't as bad as the story that they put in their head,
Mm-hmm.
is really, like, it's so rewarding, because that's the truth for most of us, because most of us walk around, the fear that comes from finances is literally just not knowing
Yeah.
what's actually going on.
Like unbearing what you have maybe, what they say,
Yeah.
like the ostrich, you bury your head in the sand, you
Yes.
know what's going on. I could honestly say I've been guilty of that, and I've met a lot of people like that. And the world's kind of weird right now. So I think more people are doing that than they really want to. And I'm so grateful that we have had this time to be able to share how, or actually, before we go into questions, I want to ask about your business. What is a good question maybe I should have asked you that I didn't think of asking you?
And what I think we had gotten to my why a little bit, talking about doing this for my husband. So actually, we could, if you want, we could talk a little bit about the real estate side, because I actually don't get to talk about that too much.
We
And I
should do
know
it in another call.
that's
That
your
way
area of
we've got
expertise.
like, we should do it in another call. So that way I can give you more time because
Oh,
obviously
I
real
love
estate
it.
is my passion project. Love
Yeah.
being able to be, I've been a landlord, a flipper, and all that jazz. And being able to help you talk about your financial coaching business, I think would help so many people to know that there's someone out there that's in a position that you're in that has been through what you've been through, and knowing that you've got sort of on the other side of the perspective now that you can show them they don't have to bury their head in the sand anymore. Kind of everything that's going on in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What would you say is the best way that people could get a hold of you so that way you could have that identification of making sure that you guys would be right to be paired together so that you could help them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am active on Instagram and on, like, LinkedIn and Facebook. Uh on Instagram, I'm at Blue Line Money Coach. And then on, like, Facebook and LinkedIn, you can find me, Priority One Financial Coaching. And then my website is www.priorityonefc.com, and that's all spelled out. No numerical characters in there. But yeah, or you can always just shoot me an email, Rebecca at priorityonefc.com.
Nice.
And I'm really responsive with my emails.
I love that. Is there anything that what we can leave with anybody in my network, anybody that I know or that you know, like, how can I leave an impression to be able to help out what it is that you're doing right now? Like, what do you need in your business?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always just looking for referrals. And that's one of the things that I've noticed too, when it comes to just investing in general. Whenever you're working with investors, whether it's real estate agents or, real estate investors or advisors and things like that, is there's always people who are so interested in what you do as a real estate investor, and are like, how do I get to that point? And so and a lot of people might not be ready for that next step right when they have that conversation to you, but maybe it's like, I'm that first step for them to recognize where they are at with their finances and what they need to do to get to that point where they can be a real estate investor. Because I honestly believe, I think real estate is one of the best investment options out there if you do it right.
Right? Because they're not making any more land. And if you could
Ex-
learn how to buy right, I could tell everybody that all day long, but you got to get there kind of a thing. So I love that
Mhm.
you shared all that stuff. We'll, of course, post all down below. That way everybody can get a hold of you. And I appreciate your time so much. Any little nugget that you want to leave us with as our last little tagline?
Yeah, I think just if you have any inkling of feeling stressed or uncomfortable or having any challenges with money, chances are there's probably room for growth and there's room for you to make a change. And that's what I help people do. That's what I help people accomplish, is figuring out and uncovering what those pain points are within your finances and create a clear path so you can get to a point where you're no longer feeling that discomfort and stress around money.
You said it out of the mouth of Rebecca. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you guys again soon.